welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Today I sit down with street artist and painter Ron English, as well as filmmaker and designer Constant van Hoeven. Hope you enjoy.
All you groove freaks, take it right on that. I'm talking, you're listening. I'm a talking, and you're a listening.
You can probably get a little closer.
A little closer, okay. Yeah. Let's kind of tie it to my beard.
It probably would work, but then we got to give it to Constant.
Yeah, but I got the COVID.
You do?
I'm gonna give him the COVID.
Which one?
I've had it like 7 times.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you know what my life is like, right?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Oh, you don't know? Okay. Yeah.
I did watch the documentary though.
Well, like when we do the Elbro things, it's like 7,000 to 10,000 people all crushed together with their shirts off, sweaty, and yeah, I tried to when we were in we went to the one in Ibiza in Spain or whatever, and at that one I decided I was going to walk through the crowd and go see everything, and it was like the dumbest thing I ever did. It took me like an hour to get back to the stage, and it's all these sweaty people, and they thought I was a prop. I mean, they kind of knew who I was because it was my event, but so they're like all these big sweaty guys holding me and like making their selfies with me, but yeah.
Can you describe that further? That type of event?
Oh, it's like a 12-hour rave, and I do all the art for it. It's called Delusionville. So like they have 100 people play my characters, so they all have costumes, and then I give them all one sheets of how the character behaves. So when they go behave with the crowd, they act like they're supposed to act, and then they do big statues of all the characters and their cars and their airplanes, and so it's a whole immersive event. And I think you take more magical type of drugs. I don't think they give them alcohol, but not that much. They actually party pretty hard. In Spain, they come in like about 5 hours before and sit in the parking lot and party, and then they come in and party for 12 hours, and then they go out to breakfast, and yeah, they roll hard.
And then you get COVID.
Well, I knew I was going to get. I mean, I was crushed with all these people. I knew, and the funny part is, when they asked me to do it, they said, we want you to come see the thing, so we want to fly you to Ibiza. That's where they do the biggest version. And so I did, and it was like another guy's event. So I probably got COVID at that because that one was COVID was first starting. But I wanted this gig so bad, I thought, fuck it, I got to go. And then after that, I'll not do anything.
You did nothing after this?
Well, no. There's another friend of mine, Josh and Miranda, and we had a drop with these crystal lady lips, and they said that we put our whole life savings into this, so if you don't come to the drop, we're going to lose everything, Ron. So I kind of thought, well, I have to go that, and so we went down there, and I sent my wife out to go get some hand sanitizers because we were going to shake a lot of hands. Seven places, nobody had sanitizers, all sold out. And so we just got a gallon of bleach and we had it in a bucket, and we were just sticking our hands in the bucket before we shook people's hands. Yeah, but we still got COVID. I don't know. Yeah, we were getting it. We gave it to the guy on Wall Street, Weinstein.
You gave it to him?
Yeah, well, either that or he gave it to us. I don't know. It was crazy. But yeah, he made a big deal out of it and got a lot of press out of it. And yeah. So
this is it's kind of immersive.
Yeah, it's an immersive event. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of what my whole life was leading to. The problem with this event is I also make music that goes with the art, but it's a different kind of music. So they do EDM, or they have their own thing. I don't even quite understand it, a certain beat pattern and stuff. If you listen to like a repetitive music for, I think, more than 6 or 7 minutes, then you start to get hypnotized. So it's kind of part of the whole experience that it has to be this kind of music. So I wasn't able to match the music. So I'm still trying to get to a point where I get to do these kind of events and with my music. So yeah. And we have a very similar event that tours Asia, and mostly China, where we do like giant statues and immersive kind of thing again. But we're not allowed to play my music there because we would have to take it to the censors, and they would have to go through every track line by line and then scrape out lines, and we'd have to re-record it without that line, and it was just overwhelming to try to do that. So,
what do you think they would be flagging? What are these songs about? Kind of music.
Okay, here's the concept. There's this world called Delusionville.
Yep.
It's like this underground world where everything's backwards. It's kind of an Aesop's Fables, Animal Farm type of thing. So all the animals represent a certain social class.
Okay.
And they're all kind of weird, deformed, like the pigs are unicorns and stuff. And there's reasons for this. I'm finally doing a graphic novel that explains everything and why everything is the way it is. But I have different singers play the different characters. So there's a big sheep called Bo Leave, and he's the spiritual leader. He's like a big ram-looking character. And so I have Russell Cusick play him, who's an opera singer. Travie McCoy plays the little wolf boy who's in love with the little sheep girl who skinned one of the wolves and wears them as the clothes so she can hang out with the wolves. And so, yeah, it's kind of complicated and big. And I think we have about 200 songs out on Spotify. It's the Rabbits, but you have to misspell it with 3 B's.
Okay.
Yeah. Big mistake I made along the way.
The 3 B's?
You ever embed a mistake in your life? But I thought I'm naming misspelling the name of the band, and plus the main characters are these little rabbits with 3 eyes, would set me aside. Like Kodak. They made Kodak, and it's like, well, that's just a made-up word. So they didn't have to compete with anybody for that word. It was their word. And I thought misspelling would be great. But the problem is when you use Alexa, or even if you type it in, it always corrects and goes to another band called the Rabbits, who have sold a lot of records in the last 10 years. And they don't know why.
So if I recall correctly...
I should have called it Delusionville.
You still have time.
I talked to some people, and you would have to re-release every record. And, it's Rabbits.
3 B's.
It just means that every time I talk to people, I have to say 3 B's, and they're like, oh, yeah, right, 3 B's. And then they try to do it, and it's hard. Yeah.
So if I recall correctly, in the documentary, it talks about how you were into drugs young, right? And kind of, were you theatrical? I can't recall.
No. Well, I don't know.
Well, you kind of created this scene of happenings, right?
Yeah. When we were really little, we would mow yards, and we had a camera. So, like, my best friend ended up being like a theatrical guy. So we built sets like in our basement and filmed movies. So yeah, I think maybe there was always an element of theatrics in there.
There feels like you were saying, your whole life has been leading to that.
Yeah.
I take that to mean that although painting is great and stimulating, there's probably limits, especially for a personality like yours, where obviously the billboards were. There's an externality to what you're doing, a public-facing element.
Yeah. I like being around a lot of people. And,
you do?
Giving them COVID,
So that's always been true. You like
Yeah. I was always the kind of the ringleader, and I always created events for everybody. And so, like, I figured out, like, we lived in a small town in Texas when I first moved to Texas. And then I figured out that the community centers are free. If you live in that community, you get to go to the community center. And like, well, can we have rock concerts there? And yeah, you can do anything you want. And so I would do one in my town, Duncanville, and then we would go over to DeSoto, and I'd find a friend in DeSoto, and then we would set up a party there. So all the kids would go to the parties, and I think it was like you pay $2, and there's we had 10 kegs of beer and 5 bands, and then I made all the movies that I made with all these characters. We would show between the bands, and I had to narrate them because there was no sound in movies back then, like an 8mm. So it was like performance and.
Yeah. No, that's interesting to me. So I assume do you enjoy being isolated, making a painting? How long can you?
Yeah. I'm also an introvert. I'm both. I'm a Gemini, so I'm an extrovert and an introvert.
There it is.
Yeah, when I'm out doing like the billboards, that's all I want to do. I just never want to stop, and I never want to get off the road. But when I finally get off the road and go back to my studio, I never want to leave the studio. So, but once I get, I'm like a little kid. I don't want to do that. I want to just keep doing the billboards, and then. Well, you got to go paint, so you can make some money, and then.
The commodifying of that, like we were talking about earlier, it seemed much harder back then to commodify an activity of that nature.
Yeah.
But now, like we were saying, you can commodify almost anything.
Yeah, I have no idea. But it was like I came from a very small town, so I had no concept of what an artist was. My teacher showed me like a Jackson Pollock, and I thought, this is like a joke, right? and then he was cute. He was funny. He said, well, they actually, here's how they make the painting. And this is probably a fake memory, but but he goes, first they would paint like the Last Supper, like photorealistic, and then he would just keep messing with it, and abstracting it more and more until it became that. But the underpainting is the Last Supper. And
so he's just fucking with you.
You know what? I don't think he ever said that, because he was like a really straight Christian guy. I think I might have told some other kids that. But, you don't remember things quite right. Yeah.
How do you feel about Jackson Pollock now? Like, do you feel the same way you did as a kid?
Yeah, there's like if I go to MoMA and I see the Jackson Pollock show, like I went with one of my friends, and I can't stand it. It drives me fucking nuts. I mean, I love the shit out of it. I love the concept of it. I love that I'm not going to make a picture of something. I'm going to make something. I'm going to be nature. But I just want to go home and do it. I want to make one, And it's just like, I don't know. Like, have you ever hung around with like performers, and they can't, like my friend Russell Cusick, who plays the opera singer. I can't take him to go see musicians. I set him in the back row, and then he's singing louder than them. Mm-hmm. He wants to be on that stage so bad. And I think when I see other paintings, I just want to run home and paint. And
all paintings?
Yeah.
They stimulate you in that way?
Not like real sterilized, like Soviet stuff from the social realism.
Really?
Socialist realism.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks too much like that they're just entertaining the state or capitulating to like what some bureaucrat wants.
Sure.
There's no sense of that's even their art. It's
an
just
individual.
like I'm competent, and you can see they're all at different levels of competence, but it just seems so dogmatic. I can't take it. But artists that you really feel like they're on their own trip. Like, it doesn't matter, like, I may not like minimalism, but I can get that Donald Judd was on this journey, and that was his trip, and he was authentic, and that was his thing, and he made his whole life about that. And I don't think, like, a lot of people that don't know anything about the art world think that some of these guys are putting you on, or they're trying to get over, but they're not. They're not. They're tripping on this thing, and they're into it, and it's their whole life. And you got to love somebody that's dedicated their life. And he's the best minimalist that ever existed, or, even he may not vibe with that art form, but you can respect that he's the shit,
Yeah, it's pretty rare. I mean, I think it exists, but it's very rare that an artist would dedicate their whole life to tricking you, or just like putting one over, because it takes a lot of time and energy, and it's not a thing. There's better ways to make money.
Yeah, and the grossest artists are the ones that are just trying to get over, and they do exist. Where they just make the slockiest, crappiest stuff, and like our friend Thomas Kincaid, or
him, your friends.
I have a nice picture of him like looking at my parodies of his stuff, but I put a bunch of lowbrow figures in his paintings. But
that makes me, I was watching the documentary. I was thinking about Warhol, because there's like a difference between his detached understanding of pop culture, and then say my understanding of like living through American pop culture, or your understanding, because you're in it, you grow up in it, in those symbols,
right?
But how does Warhol do you feel about this?
Well, you got to remember that type of art didn't exist really before him, and also he was weirdly naive. I mean, he stayed home with his mother because I think he got scarlet fever or something and lost patches of his hair, and I'm sure the kids gave him hell, or it probably was unpleasant for him to be at school, and he was really mothered, and they would get the movie magazines and cut out pictures of the stars, and they would do coloring books, and she would give him Hershey's chocolate for, finishing a coloring book. In a weird way, he's still doing it. He was still doing that, and that was what pop art was. He really was worshipful of these characters, and he had a weird, simplistic way that he made stuff, like he was an idiot savant almost or something.
Yeah.
But he was just trying to manufacture. He was basically doing the same thing he did when he was a little kid, cut out pictures of famous people. And it's interesting that he also got to be a famous person and got to be on the same level as them. But he kind of created himself, and there wasn't Hollywood or anything to create who he was. He created that himself.
Right. Actually, Constant. I was thinking about from the European perspective, the way you might view, like, for instance, we grow up in this stuff, McDonald's, like the billboard stuff that he's subverting is more immersive for us as a symbol structure. But as a European, I know it eventually moved there. But how do you view his work in that way?
Well, I think in Europe is pretty much the same way. I mean, I think the first time I saw Ron's work was in a magazine called Adbusters, I think was the cover. Is that right? And I was drawn to it because it was so like culture jamming, and so I think, I think it's pretty much the same. American culture is also in Europe, But is it different because we sent it over to you as opposed to kind of, you know what I'm saying? There's like a different, we export that to you. We send that out to you. I'm always amazed by the amount of American culture Europeans know. Like I forget that we dominated the world culturally post World War II. Basically. Yeah, I mean the movies that are played in the Netherlands are American films, and the brands that people wear are American brands, and the food they eat is also for a lot of the times American food. Like McDonald's was in every street corner in Amsterdam, sometimes two per street. So it's like, so in a sense, I grew up with that myself just as much as anybody here does. But I have an outside perspective on other things. Like when I first moved here, I was very weirded out by all the electrical wires on the above,
yes,
that are like everywhere. Just this ugliness of like electricity.
My wife is French and she hates that.
Yeah. So there's like stuff like that is very obvious. But yeah, American culture. I grew up watching Tarantino films, so it's like
yeah. So it's kind of I guess it's a different kind of violation though in some ways. Like the fact that it came from our country, I think is a different feeling. Like actually, when I look at your work, Ron, it can be tricky because I'm looking at symbols that have already, how would you say, assaulted me, and then you're playing with that. And the relationship to that is very complicated, I imagine, even as you're making it. Like, do you resent these symbols? Because Warhol at least plays the game that he loves the pop culture, even though I feel like he's being ironic, but he loves every minute of that unholy matrimony between art and commerce. But what is your relationship to that?
Okay, well, I'm old. And when I first went to Europe, we weren't born yet. And they weren't overwhelmed with American culture, and they had a different kind of art vibe, more hippie and like Gaudi. Remember the sculptor or the architect? And so you would see completely different stuff when you went there, mostly. And I think when Andy was young and I was young in the 60s, all the stuff was new and exciting, and we liked it. And they would feed us these weird Tootsie Roll looking things that were supposed to be from space, and they weren't, or that the astronauts ate it. But there was a lot of enthusiasm towards progress, and all this stuff still felt good. Like I think when they promoted the Industrial Revolution, it's like, we're not going to have mosquitoes anymore. We got the stuff DDT. We're just going to spray it. Right. And the kids would literally run behind the DDT trucks and get sprayed with it.
Yeah. Cheering.
And play with mercury.
Yeah, my mom played with mercury a lot.
Yeah, we were dumbasses. But I don't think the cynicism had set in yet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So in a sense, like you might see McDonald's as a great thing when you're young, right? It's just like a convenient and wonderful American innovation.
I think the disconcerting thing about me and the problem that people have with me is that I observe from all angles at the same time. So I love it, I hate it. I have really mixed emotions about everything that I do. So I think one of the reasons I do some of the stuff so well is because I actually love it and hate it. And like our dear friend Morgan Spurlock just passed. But I think his genius was, like, he did Super Size Me, but he didn't just, like, there was a whole bunch of social activist films before that. I ended up being in the film because I was being in all these social activist films, and I thought he had no idea of what he was doing or it would ever come out. I thought he would get sued, but it didn't happen, and it came out and made $80 million. But maybe one of the biggest documentaries ever. But his magic was that that he wasn't just against McDonald's. He was recognizing that maybe momentarily it's very comforting and good, or that the pop art of it or something, that there was kind of an embrace, and then maybe an hour later you regretted it and realized that it was toxic food. But I mean, he didn't deny the fact that there's something there, you know? And right. They are the greatest pop artists. You know, the stuff lights up. I used to make those signs, you know, those light up signs. And, you know, you see them like up on the top of the pole, but when we would finish a giant light up sign, they light up from the inside. We would spray layers of paint. We'd put them in these big vacuum form things so they'd be molded. And then, like, every time we finished a sign, we'd turn the whole factory lights down, and then everybody would gather around. We'd turn it on. It was amazing. It was so beautiful. I always dreamed that one day that I would have the budget to make fine art that way, like big light up vacuum form kind of things.
So you worked on that,
yeah.
You know, as a young man?
Yeah. I came from poverty. I worked a million different jobs. I did some super humiliating things, you know, and things that, you know, like I was a nurse for like an old guy that was like 230 pounds, and I had to carry him to the bathroom. I had to wipe his ass, you know, and I had to do everything for him. He was like almost completely paralyzed, and it was like 250 pounds too. I'd put a strap around you to pick him up, and I would almost black out like for a minute. And then I got him another assistant, my best friend, the crazy guy that set himself on fire. He was 6'8", and he loved that guy because I could pick him up. Because he was also the paralyzed guy was afraid that his house would catch on fire and none of us would get him out. You know, that was one of his paranoia. So, but yeah, I did a lot of stuff before I got to be an artist.
And that so as a Gemini, if I understand correctly, you guys are kind of split in respect to decision making. Like you wanted to make both moves at the same time, or
I just threw that out there. I don't know if any of that stuff is true, Gemini.
It tells you something.
Okay, like if you think about it, you've always been the same person. So we lived in a neighborhood, and behind my house there were these empty fields, and they were owned by the Cotts. They were kind of the richer family or whatever, and they had the coolest dad ever. We did our own fire. He did fireworks for us and built us a ball diamond, so we had a private ball diamond. But like the Cotts didn't like the Hines, who live on the other side of the field.
Of course.
But I would go play with the Cotts, and we would build these big slingshots and shoot hedge apples at them, the big green apples. Really, you could really fuck a kid up with that.
Sure.
But and we'd be at war with them all day, and then the next day I'd be with the Hines, and then I would be shooting the other way, and I just started just quiet, and I just drifted from. So I wasn't really on any side. I could just sort of, and my life is kind of like that, because I remember like I had a dinner with Mark Parker, the guy from Nike, and then afterwards I lived in Jersey City, so I stopped at some after hours club, and there's some guy ranting about look at Nike, blah blah blah, you know. And I made really good friends with him too, and
I understand.
I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like oh yeah, we were like throwing hedge apples at them earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's with them now, you know. I don't know, but I mean it's interesting to not. You know, I mean, I have opinions and I work hard on political activism, but I don't hate anybody, and I don't think that anybody in the world thinks of themselves as the bad guy. You know, everybody thinks they're on the right side, they're the good guys, and it's kind of nice to. I think it's good to think that way. You know.
Yeah, I think almost like if you can abstract out, it isn't clear that people are bad or that they themselves even control themselves.
Yeah.
So you have to have a certain sense of sympathy.
Yeah, and like your show, or like I've been listening to another show called City Kitty. He does like the cats or whatever, but he gets other artists on, and it helps me a lot to listen to your show and his show, because I realize that we're all the same. Artists are, we're in different periods in our career or some, but it's the same trip, and you think, oh, that happened to me. It's like, poor me. And you realize, oh, that happens to all artists.
How do you think they differ from non-artists?
Well, it's
or are they just all the same?
No, there's something very different about them. And you are picking something that's uncharted territory. And so you could really screw your life up really good, So
sure,
they're very different kinds of people. The artist, I think it's genetic. I think that It's like a certain amount of people will just be gay. They're born gay, and a certain amount of people I think are born artists, and it's a real thing. And I think that if they try to go be straight and have a straight job, that they'll be miserable. That they have to do this.
Well, that's an interesting point, because that's what I was thinking about when I asked about the Geminis, because you're also playing both sides of art and commerce, or like you have a successful career financially as well, right?
Yes.
And before, like, street art was there a moment, for instance, when, because I don't think I was that aware of it, but when street art becomes commodified or lowbrow becomes commodified, I assume that there was an awkwardness about that moment, and certain people were for it, against it, etc. But I am assuming, based on the nature you just explained, that you could navigate both at the same time. Does that make sense?
Well, I think originally it was like, let's say we smoke weed, and we're all sitting around doing bong hits, but nobody doing a bong hit thought we could monetize this.
Right.
Somehow, I see a future where we're smoking bong hits and getting paid. But no, I mean, that was not a thought that happened.
It wasn't so conscious. It wasn't.
Yeah, no, I'm going down the streets and doing illegal things.
Right.
And I like the idea, and I was completely anonymous, and for a long time my name was Randall Hart, which we called our movement Vandal Art, so it was sort of a rhyme on that. But no, I mean, it was fun. We went out, and there's no rules. You can do whatever you want. The billboard's huge. I wanted to make big things, and I'm 18 years old. There's nobody that's going to put me in a big gallery and sell big things.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to make big things, but I'm young and athletic, and I want to make giant things. Maybe I don't want to make them now. Tired.
Right.
But now I get the opportunity to make them for museums and galleries, and sort of wish that I could recall that 18-year-old and let him do it,
Yeah, what is that transition like? Like, obviously you must be professional in some sense. You've navigated the art world, and you must, again, it seems to come back to this idea that you can be both things at once.
Well, something changed.
Really?
Street art got big. I'm not sure why. I have theories.
Yeah.
I think during the recession, I think that a lot of towns couldn't make new museums. I think rebranding. So instead of having a museum, look, these guys will come paint these giant walls, and now you've got an outdoor museum. Now you have a cultural center for your town. There was kind of a flip. I remember, like, this is just my story, but I was painting I wanted to paint at the Wynwood Walls. This is a thing in Miami, but I'd been painting with another group, like, just illegally, and then one guy Harold Golden let me do a mural on his building, but I kept looking over at Wynwood Walls, so it was like year one. They had lifts, they had lots of paint. I was painting with house paint, and so I was able to worm my way into that, and then, like. And I forgot what I was talking about. Sorry, but yeah, I got Wynwood Walls. I did a mural for them, but
it's more. You were discussing.
I was telling the story like my when I think things flipped, like in my mind. Because first, okay, well, it's already kind of flipped because I'm working for developers now and not having them call the cops on me. And we're building an outdoor museum, and this one's actually protected and stuff can last for a couple of years. But they got me like 600 cans of paint of Montana, which is fucking I love Montana. I mean, now it's changed because they're making paint for us with fucking pigment in it. We used to paint with Krylon. You can see right through it, right? So I mean, it was almost like we were like playing baseball, but there was no mound. So you can't judge us against the guys that get the mound, or you can't judge us against the guys who have Montana. So we put all this paint out. And then they said, just leave it out there. And I said, well, let me put it in they had a little warehouse there. They said, oh, no, we're going to do an installation in there. You can leave it out. It's like, yeah, but people fucking steal it. And it's like, they're not going to steal it, Ron. Look, Logan Hicks is painting a mural right there. He's staying up all night. He's got Chanu, filming him with camera. We got a security guy there. We got a security guy on the other side. And we got security cameras everywhere. It's safe. I come back the next day, it's all gone. But it's all over the walls, everywhere. And then I go out there, and there's some developer, and he's freaking out. Like some guy just slaughtered all this stuff. And then the next night, he caught one of the kids, and I think he'd come in a van from Ohio or something with his friends. And then he goes, you know what? What do you want? Why are you painting your name on my wall or whatever? And he goes, well, it's just I have to do something really fast because, obviously I get caught. And he goes, well, what if I let you do whatever you wanted? What if I said it's okay? And he goes, oh, then I would kill it, you know? And so he stayed up all night and he did a piece. And the next day, the developer's like, wow. And then he's looking at me because he did that shit for free. It's like, yeah, that's what happens.
That's a problem.
No, but then the kid's like saying, then he goes, you know, I own all these buildings. I have all these giant walls. Would you like to do another mural, or do you know anybody? And he goes, oh, yeah, I got friends. Could they do one? And it's like, yeah. And he goes, well, are they as good as you? And he goes, oh, fuck, they're better than me. And then by the end of the weekend, all those empty walls were slaughtered, and the guys out there, the developers out there beaming. So, like,
that's the day it changed.
Before the weekend started, he hated that shit. By the end of the weekend, he was, like, prideful that he got some great artists thrown up on his wall. And
because it was free.
That couple of years was when everything turned. And suddenly we weren't outlaws anymore. Suddenly developers wanted to fly us in. And the Goldmans kind of are the ones that kicked it all off. Because before that, we were with Primary Flight, and that was kind of a little outlaw. You know, we had some free walls, and we did some fucked up walls. Like I was working with them, and they there was a guy had a trailer, right? And you know, he's sitting there on the thing and on the little stoop on his trailer, and so hey, can I paint this? You know, and he goes, oh yeah, fine, you know. So I paint it. And it's a truck, right? And so the next day they pulled the back of the truck off because I guess I painted on it, so somebody stole it. And then meanwhile, the actual owner's freaking the fuck out, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? And it's like, well, you know, the owner said it's okay, and it's like, well, who do you think the owner was? And so, well, there's a guy sitting there, and says, like, was he doing crack? And it's like, yeah, I think he was smoking something. And it's like, that's just some fucking crackhead.
Right.
But it was like the Wild West until the Goldmans came in and understood what this was, and I think that was the year everything changed, you know.
Does that take away some of your steam when the outlaw dynamic gets shifted to, well, I don't even know what we would call it, but it's more like just straight up commodification of what's being done?
I mean, it's interesting that there's people that have never done an illegal thing in their life. You know, I committed like maybe 2,000 felonies. And I went to jail 30 times, and now it's legal, and now people want it. So
how has jail changed over time from your experience? Food better, worse?
Jails, food. They always give you this weird white stuff, and nobody's ever been able to identify what it is. But now jail's not that much different.
We're talking 2,000 felonies. Are we talking billboard stuff?
Billboards, stealing cars, taking drugs. You know.
Oh, you like to steal cars?
When I was very young, I stole a couple cars, and then I started out kind of like a thug, but and then one time I got busted with 1/10 of a gram of hash, and it was fucked up because I had a busted out taillight, crazy fucking day. I was in I took some journalism classes, right, in junior college.
Okay.
And so we just thought, I talked to my friend, and I said, hey, you know what, we should just like be journalists for a day just to see what it's like. I had no intention of being a journalist. It was just like an extra class. So we figured, okay, there's a Ku Klux Klan rally at the beginning of the day. So let's start there. And so we went there because, you know, that's where the journalists was at. And we got a lot of great pictures of them. And we went right into the march with them. And my friend, like, I kicked a couple of them and then, like, took pictures as they kind of fucking tried to attack me. So, and then they finally got to the courthouse. And they were going to give a speech, but there was too many people. Like, they were going to get killed. People were just screaming, and they're completely soaked in sweat. I mean, those guys were going to die if they tried to do the speech. And so I had bulk-loaded film, but I used Scotch tape instead of masking tape. So this great shit I had when I was kicking the guys had popped off, and I had to go take it out, and I had to have complete darkness. So I found the bottom of the courthouse, and I found a bathroom, and I blocked it up with all the garbage cans so nobody else could get in, and then I changed my film out, and I came out the other way, and I realized they're taking them out one at a time. They're not going to do it, because how the fuck are we going to get? Everybody's waiting for them to come out so they could kill them, or whatever they were going to do. But what they were doing is they were taking their robes off, and they had them folded, and they were putting them under the Dallas Morning News, right? You know, like a newspaper. And then they're walking out with them folded, and I'm like, fuck. And they're doing like one every couple minutes. So I thought, do I go around and yell at the crowd going, they're taking them out this way, and wreak havoc? Or is the journalist supposed to intervene? But at the end of the day, after all that, I figured out that I wasn't a journalist at all, because the real journalist for the Dallas Morning News He knew who all these people were. He figured out they were taking him out that way. He followed the Grand Wizard, who was actually an old woman at that point, back to her car because he knew who all the players were. He did his research. We didn't do our research. He followed her back to her car. She was fumbling to get in her car. She dropped her newspaper and her Ku Klux Klan hat, the Grand Wizard hat. A black guy's walking down the street, just, da-da-da. Nothing to do with the protest or anything. She's like quite a few blocks away. He saw an old woman drop something, and what did he do? He swooped down and grabbed it and handed it to her because just as a gentleman, And and I don't think he realized what it was in that exact moment because it was just a responsive thing. Well, let me help the old woman, and it hadn't registered with him, and it hadn't registered with her. But then there's comes this moment when it's kind of registering to him as she's taking that hat, and it's kind of registering to her what's happening, and then the Dallas Morning News guy is fucking right there, so he gets the picture. Boom. See, he knew what he was doing. We didn't. But anyway, as that day went on, next thing you know, we see like an amphibious vehicle, one that invaded Normandy, just sitting in the guy's yard. So we think, we'll take some pictures of that, and we're taking pictures of that, and then we hear wham! Wham! We're like, I wonder what that is. And we look, and there's a car just fucking flying 100 miles an hour with the stop sign and a go sign like wrapped around his fucking hood. And he just goes right through the side of a house. And we stood there looking over the top of our cameras. And we didn't push the button.
Wow, yeah.
Because we weren't photographers. We were just, it was we didn't know. And then we were scared for the people in the car. We thought they were hurt. And then these like, about maybe like 11 guys piled out of the car one at a time. Like they were stunned and they were super drunk. And they just started kind of walking around in this weird circle like they were disoriented. And we still didn't take pictures. We're like, are you guys okay? Should we call an ambulance? Are you guys okay? And they finally kind of figured out their situation and just hauled ass. They just all, like in a group, just hauled ass because, they were drunk and they went to the side of somebody's house. Sure. And they were probably illegal, Mm-hmm. They were probably not documented. So that's the middle part of the day, and it got crazier and crazier and crazier until finally we were arrested about 4 a.m, and everything was cool. I had a burned out taillight. I'd been drinking, but they kind of back in those days they didn't mind too much if you drank, as long as you looked like you could get home. And he kind of figured out that I was okay. And my tall friend at 6'8" is was next to me, but we had been in a bar. And I was talking to people, and he just stood at the bar and drank because he was kind of shy, and so he was way more fucked up than me. So I would just tell him, look, just fucking don't say anything. Just shut your fucking mouth. Let me do all the talking. And I had him all talked out of it. He was sitting on the curb, and the last thing I told him is this: the police are our friends. Listen to me. The police are our friends. Do you understand? And he's like, yeah, police are our friends. And then he was sitting there kind of mumbling, but they were kind of like, you guys are pretty drunk. You're going to get them home. And they said, look, you're going home. You ain't going nowhere else. If I see you out anywhere else, you're going to jail. You're going home. And you're taking these guys home. They seem really drunk. It's him and Mark Monroe. And then suddenly he just stood up, and he was like Lurch. He was 6'8", big fucking dude. And he just threw his arms out. I love the police. So he did repeat what I said. He did hear it, and he was going to grab him, and, they threw him on the ground and handcuffed him. And then they pulled all the seats out of my car, and they found 1/10 of a gram of a hash, which that's nothing. It's like a speck, but it's still a second-degree felony. And so that's when I got my second felony, yeah.
It sounds like Lenny from Of Mice and Men that you were driving around with.
Yeah, kind of. Anyway, I don't know what that has to do with art, but we did figure out that we weren't very good.
I think that has to do with going to jail.
We weren't very good photojournalists, and yeah, so.
Well, on the journalist tip, where did this documentary come from?
So a friend of mine, Andrew Porter, used to do some filming for Ron, and he's a cinematographer, and he asked me in the car towards a shoot that we were doing, what kind of film, if I would make a documentary, what kind of documentary I would make. And I told him, like, I want to do a graffiti documentary. And then he said, well, you should meet my friend Ron, because he's an amazing street artist. And he took me over to his house, and we started talking about doing a movie. And I felt like hit it off immediately, even though like later Ron sort of told me that that maybe that I come from a graffiti background, and you know, he thought that he wasn't went to jail enough for me to do a movie about him or something like that. I forget what it is.
His brother spent a year in jail. And by the way, my 3 felonies, I got out of all of them. So I kind of felt like...
There you go, yeah.
Well, I kind of felt like that you must be looking at me like you little white boy, you get away with whatever the fuck you want, you know?
But I feel like we hit it off pretty...
But I didn't get out of stuff from a position of privilege. I figured out with the Billboard thing, I figured out that and I didn't figure it out. There was one woman with this Jane Hawknetter, but she her mother called the Billboard company, and they said, yeah, this guy's first time at the rodeo. He's done like $1 million worth of damage, and you guys are going down. And but then I thought I didn't think about calling the Billboard company, so I started calling the Billboard company. I got the guy, and he goes, you're going to prison. I hate you, And then I called him again. He took the call, and he goes, $30,000. Well, we couldn't even come up with 100 for a lawyer or whatever. And but every day I called him and I said, look, I'm a college student, and and so we're all going to be thugs. We're going to go to prison. We have to do a year. Every lawyer we talk to says 1 year, 2 years. And it's like I'm in graduate school. It's like I would be a famous artist afterwards, or I'll be a fucking thug, and it's up to you. And but every day I talked to him, and he finally. He said, well then I'll charge you $10,000. And he knocked it down to $5,000. And 2 days before the trial, he said, if you can come up with $800, I caught you doing 8 billboards. I had to pay a guy $100 to redo them, each one, $100 each. And if you come up with that, then I'll drop the charges. And that's what happened. But it was because I talked to the guy. If I hadn't done that,
So safe to say he's thug enough, to make a movie about. And so we started filming and started doing an interview that was like 2 hours long. And then we started going to his hometown and started following him around. And he asked me, I remember him asking me the first day, he's like, oh, how long is this going to take, this film? I'm like, oh, I'd like to be done in 6 months. And it ended up taking 6 years. So.
And is that your first film, or you've made films before?
I made films before. I had short films before.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I went to film school in Amsterdam in 2007, graduated 2007, and then moved to the United States to follow my dreams and a woman. And then I found myself on the roof of a house roofing to make money, and that's how I started my carpentry thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, as an immigrant stealing American job, roofing.
Not one you would suspect.
Yeah.
Dutch.
No, if you're white, it's okay.
And then, Ron, how is that? How is it to look back upon your life in that kind of encapsulated way? How old are you?
I'm 65.
Okay.
I just got on Medicare.
Congrats.
Unfortunately, my health caved in 6 months before. I held on until...
Oh, you knew. Yeah, you knew.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I got to make it to Medicare. Yeah. But,
it's like when you got to go to the bathroom and you're just right there.
Yeah, at this point, half of my friends are retired. And so, I don't think artists retire.
No.
Yeah.
It's a life sentence, for better or for worse.
I don't know. I find it a lot of fun, but
of course.
But it's very hard. Yeah, like right now, you would understand this. I'm working on a graphic novel to try to explain the universe a little better, and it's a lot of work, and it's the longer it gets, and it's hard to contain the whole thing and make it all make sense from the beginning to the end. And
it's very challenging. But I've always
and it's another thing that you're not going to make money off of.
No.
I mean, it seems prestigious, like if you get Image or somebody to put it out, but it's people don't understand. It's like, no, I think about money because, I'll be working on a project and I'll realize that I'm going into the zone where now I'm not making money anymore. I've worked on it for too long, too hard. And you always make that weird, or I always make that weird decision where if I spend another month on this painting, I'm not going to make money, but then I can make this so much better. And then, I don't know. And usually I opt for the losing money and making it better, so...
Well, you also seem pragmatic. I mean, again, you built a career out of this.
Yeah. Well, how I kind of play when I'm here and working is on the weekends I do experimental things and I build sets or I make music. And then on Monday, I switch to like something that's actually like painting or something that's going to make money or commission or something. And so I kind of think of at my spare time, I try new things. And in my actual 8 hours a day, I work on something that's going to, because I support a bunch of people and yada, yada.
We have children and a wife.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. I have to make money. And yeah, my wife helps me. And it took a long time for her to start helping me. She worked for like Booz Allen Hamilton,
What's that?
Well, they do government stuff and they do private industry stuff, but they kind of come into your company and figure out, oh, well, what are you doing wrong? What are you doing right? You need to fire these 400 people. You know what? You're not capturing the Latin market. Here's the path to do that. Here's stuff you do that's redundant. Edward Snowden worked there. He was probably the most famous person who worked there. So she was in information. She was the knowledge manager.
Interesting.
So she actually knew a lot of stuff, and a lot of the NSA guys worked there. And you want to see, we know everything about you. You have no idea. We know more about you than you know about yourself. That kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which gives you, we think, I don't know. We're very predictable. We don't think we are, but we are. But anyway, but she was making tons of money for these guys, and she was like a heads down kind of background person. Well, the other people kind of shined, and a lot of mothers go on that track where they become a support. But I thought, like they don't. I don't know. It was just my ego, but it was like, I make more money off one painting than you make in a year. It's like, why don't you help me with my business? And it'll be the family business. But she was. Raised by a feminist, and it's like the one thing that was just drilled into her head is never depend on a man.
Yep.
Because they'll fuck you up. You see them through medical school and then they ditch you. It happens.
Right.
But at some point it's like I'm very predictable. It's like I would never cheat on anybody. I'm very honest. She knows who I am, and at some point it's like, okay, we're in business together.
Well,
and
you've done this long enough.
It helped a lot because she can't steal because the money goes in the same bank account. I want, and it's our legacy, and our kids can make money off of the stuff I've created for the next 100 years. And so we did that, and we crossed that Rubicon, and she's it's weird. Like to be very honest, I'm not that bright, and I know that. I can tell like where my intelligence ends. You know what I mean? Where I can't get past something. I have no illusions about being some genius or something, but she's super smart, so she's able to figure out a lot of things that or deal with situations better. Or it's interesting, yeah. But I don't know. I think a lot of artists are kind of in business together with their spouses. Like maybe Tara McPherson is or isn't. I don't know, but it does seem that way, right?
I think it's fairly common because it's kind of an all-consuming practice. It's kind of a hard thing to just kind of dip a toe into. And so eventually I think it does consume a whole family if you make a family.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of artists don't
right.
have kids, I feel.
I was scared to have kids, yeah. I didn't know if that would end the whole thing or not. And weirdly, like at first when I had them, and the weird thing that happens to all parents, oh, my kids are the cutest ever. There's never been a cuter kid. No, and I know that's super annoying, and I try not to spread that to other people too much.
I would hate to hear the opposite.
But I thought, well, you know what, I can always, I just want to do a few paintings with them,
Sure.
just to have it or whatever. I thought that'd be a lot of fun. And they caught on. And for 10 years, that was my practice, doing paintings to my kids, like being Shriners and stuff. And we had a ball, and they're kind of growing and doing this stuff. And but I always said, look, if you ever don't want to do this, we will stop. It's just over, because then I'll go, back to whatever I was doing. And one day they had said that, and then I was like, fuck, this is kind of my thing, and that's what people want from me. So
Right.
So it kind of took a long time after that to kind of develop something that worked again,
Well, yeah, I understand it. It doesn't seem like you like to compartmentalize things, so it would make sense.
Also, how do you be a smart artist? If you want to be a fine artist, what do? You do the exact same thing over and over and over again. The more you do it over and over again, the more successful you are. What's one of the most successful bands? AC/DC. Can you tell this record they just put out from the one they put out 5 years ago? I can't.
No.
They do the exact same thing. There's no ballads. There's no love songs.
No, yeah.
There's no trip hop. It's just da.
Well, but do you feel that you've done that? You've done the same thing?
No, because I do completely change, and it throws everybody for a curve. And but I do try really hard, like if I have a dealer, I try to make sure that I know he has clients. I know they want a Guernica. I make sure that I facilitate that.
Really? So you can turn on that very conscious mode.
Yeah, that's when I'm at work. 8 hours a day, I'm doing what I'm required to do, and then I try to be wild and do different things. And
well, I guess in some sense the billboards are very aware of the viewer anyway. Like you seem to have a connection with the viewer because you're not just making what you want, quote unquote, but the billboards have a message that they're trying to deliver, and I'm sure you thought about it very consciously, and you put it up. But
it's different now because for artists now you get response. And you get quicker response.
Yeah.
So, like, if I did a billboard, I leave because I don't want to get arrested.
Sure.
Like, every now and then, I lived in Austin. I was hitchhiking to Dallas. Guy picks me up. Says, I don't pick up hitchhikers. It's like, well, why'd you pick me up? He says, he had the coolest sign. And I would write where I wanted to go on the sign, and it said Dallas, and I did it, like, in the weird hip-hop style with the blends and everything, And so he was intrigued by that. So then we're talking about this and that. No, look at the hay and isn't look at God and blah, blah, blah. And then I said, what do you do? And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm a truck driver in Dallas. And then he goes, I fucking drive around Dallas. And it's weird as shit. There's all these fucking weird billboards. And I don't know who's paying for them or what the fuck. And it's like this weird thought in my brain and it won't land and it's driving me nuts. I'm like, dude, it's going to land now. I'm going to land it for you. I'm doing them. And nobody's paying me. Now it all makes sense. It's like, but why? I don't know why you're doing illegal shit, but it makes sense that there's these crazy billboards that nobody would ever pay for. So I got to meet somebody that was experiencing them, but mostly you don't. Like now you can put something on Instagram and people will talk right back to you. So the feedback loop is shorter now. And also now we're dealing with robots. So like a lot of people will post something. Like one day you post something, gets 9,000 likes, the next day it's 3. And you think, oh, and if I make everything a minute and 1 second, or if I capitulate, not even to a person anymore. I'm not even trying to please people anymore. Now wait a minute, we're trying to please robots?
Right.
What the fuck? That's why I'm glad that I'm old enough that if I had to, I could retire. Because the shit you guys deal with now, fuck, it's a weird world.
Well, beyond that, I was just talking to Constant about, it's interesting to imagine if you were to take you and put you, I don't know, 40 years ahead, dealing with the times we deal with now, culturally speaking. One, this is a surveillance state of everyone recording everyone at all times. I don't even know how you would get away with some of these things. You could commodify it, you just end up in jail. But also, there is, I believe, there are periods, especially like the 90s, and I'm sure other eras, I grew up in the 90s, but where like edge or a kind of outlaw behavior, pariah behavior was glorified and celebrated as something that should be sought in art. But increasingly, I don't think that's true. I think it'd be quite the opposite.
Yeah, we live in different times. It's different now. Yeah. People like tame artists.
Like a zoo. Like the imagery you were painting before where it's like the camera's there, there's 2 guards, no one's going to steal the shit. It sounds like a shift to like a zoo where, okay, the lion is not going to kill me. It's tamed.
We've tamed the lion. Yeah, you're no longer an outdoor cat, you're an indoor cat.
Yes. Yeah. And so that seems true across the board. I don't know how you would cultivate that kind of behavior. Like I don't even know if you would get away with it. But as you said, you're fortunate to not have been born in that.
Well, you would get away with it by you would have to go back to being anonymous, and then somehow you interface with your fans using your anonymity, I guess. But you can do stuff right in front of cameras. Like just if you put on a fake nose, the camera does not. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you can wear a mask now. And it's not, nobody thinks it's weird.
Right.
That's a gift, right?
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of that.
Yeah. So you have to do it as if there's a camera right there, because there is. But if you do it right in front of the camera, but if you disguise yourself, if you disguise yourself with a little prosthetics and a little makeup, I've done that before, and the camera just thinks you're somebody else.
For what reason did you do that?
So I can get away with stuff.
But what were you doing?
The first time I ever wore makeup to get away with something.
Yeah.
Because we did make our movies when we were kids, so we always had makeup and stuff. And but then I wanted to start drinking, and I would, go to the liquor store, and they won't sell me the liquor because I'm a kid.
Sure.
But then I got a car, so now I'm not old enough because you have to be 19. I'm like 16 or whatever. But I figured out that if you go through like one of the dark drive-thrus and you make yourself up like an old man, they see an old man, and they never card you. They think you're like 50 years old because you've grayed your beard and stuff. So you can get away with stuff by wearing makeup, and So if I was young and wanted to go hard at it again, I would go at it from that angle. I would park my car, and walk, then take a cab, and then go do my thing, and then and I would act like I'm committing a real crime.
Or wearing a yellow vest, even, which you've done too. Right?
Sometimes you wear a yellow vest, but that's just so that you don't get it's not for the cameras. It's so that anybody that goes by, if the cops go by and you're wearing an orange vest and you have a van that says outdoor systems and you're up redoing a billboard, never in a million years would they think. I mean, they have stopped and watched us and we're thinking, oh, fuck. And my guys got like really scared, but I used to hand paint them and then paste them up. So it was like I'd done Guernica and it said the New World Order. So we were like, we put up one and we were putting up the second one, and then they just wanted to drop it and run. And that's not going to work, man. And by the way, you destroy my beautiful art. So I made them put it the rest of the way up, and I said, when we get down off the ladder, I don't want you guys I want you to smoke a cigarette. I don't want you to even walk away from the ladder. I want you to act like you're getting paid minimum wage.
Right.
And you're just fucking chilling, and you're in no hurry. And we came down, and the one guy lit up a cigarette. We're just talking for a minute, and then we started acting like we maybe were going to pack up a little bit, and the cops left. Because in their mind, they're reading it's just some workers.
Of course.
If we would have ran,
Yeah.
So you can still get away with stuff. And there's also the Banksy effect, where there's kind of this perception that you just put $1 million on my garage door.
Of course.
How mad can I be, How much is this worth? So he helped us all a lot with that,
Banksy?
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know the trajectory. Like, you're doing the billboards in the 80s.
70s, 80s. Yeah.
70s, 80s.
And 90s and 2000s. And
when's the last time you did it?
It's been about a year since I actually just did illegal stuff, yeah.
Oh, you still do illegal things?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious.
I don't post it on my Instagram. I do it almost just to self-satisfy myself. Or to say something I really want to say without my name being attached to it.
So you need that. It's like a hunger.
It's a little cowardly thing that I do,
Sure. Well, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But, I like having my say.
But at 65, it's interesting that you still have the hunger for it.
I could talk about being old.
I'd love to hear about it.
You don't know you're old. You have no fucking idea.
But you seem to value keeping a childlike disposition towards art making and life.
I just don't have any concept of being old.
So, but your body just feels old, or what's the deal?
Your body starts to fail you, and it won't do shit you want it to do.
So when do you recognize that you're old throughout a day? Is it just like standing up?
Yeah, it's hard to stand up. I have to stretch for half an hour before when I get up in the morning so I could use my body, because, I'm beating it to
But you're
death,
saying, so mentally, like, it's actually something I think about. The flow of ideas from when you're 15 to 65 feels consistent?
Yeah.
Doesn't change?
We just interviewed a guy that's 96. And he's still making music and performing once a week. And, So, who knows? You just go till you drop, I guess. But everybody I know that's even older than me, you never think, I'm old, or you don't feel different about anything. You feel exactly like you did when you were 20. How old are you?
35.
Do you feel any different than when you were 25?
Only that I should stretch more, you know. From an art making perspective, no. Actually, I almost have a strange guilt about what I earned in terms of drawing. Like, there's a weird, in your 20s, you're always like, I don't know if you feel this way, but like pushing and feel like you need to earn it. For instance, maybe it takes 10 hours to make this drawing, and then you know it's good. You think it's good. But in my 30s, late 30s, it's more like you can maybe do that same thing in an hour, but you have to be confident enough that you didn't just like get one over on people, basically, like what you were saying earlier. So that efficiency of art making, where you obviously want to grow, but you also want to reap what you've sown in these past years. That's the difference I feel in the art making practice. Is like you definitely gain a kind of wisdom and efficiency of movement.
Well, I'd say when I got to New York, like at that point, you know, my contemporaries were Keith Haring and Basquiat, and they're dead. But they're just as much out there as I am. You know, I do a clothing line, they do a clothing line. I do a shoe, they do a shoe.
Yeah.
It's like they made enough stuff that they can just keep going and going. You know, it's really weird. And like in China, it's like I don't have a lot to do with those clothes. I mean, I have a million designs. You know, I have Star Skull, I have Heart Skull, I have all this catalog of stuff, and they take the whole catalog and they design everything. And then, you know, I'll come over there and go, oh yeah, that.
It's like clip art.
But it's like clip art. Yeah. And then they use it, and that's kind of like what it's like to be dead. That they just keep using your stuff.
Clip art is kind of like dead, too.
Yeah, but I mean, all my clip art images are original copyrighted images that if you put the Smiley Grin on a shirt, I would have to sue you, you know?
You must.
Yeah, I must. Oh, and that's the funny part is you when you're older, you sue people.
You have to sue people. Yeah.
No, but you have to. You have to protect your copyright.
Right.
If you, like, I got sued by Kiss.
By Kiss?
Everybody's like, why aren't you mad?
Oh, because the paintings, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like because he's aggressive about protecting his copyright. But if he wasn't aggressive, it could be stolen. Take Shepard Fairey, right? He did Obey.
Yeah.
That's Andre the Giant. I think he'd been doing it for about 10 years before the estate realized, hey, wait, that's our guy, and they tried to sue, and you know the judge just you could have sued the fuck out of him like 10 years ago. But you can't let him use this as the mainstay of his corporation or whatever and not do anything. So they didn't protect their copyright and they lost it. So, yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. I mean, I could almost at this point be a lawyer. Sometimes when you talk to your lawyer, they're like, wow, I think you know more about some of the stuff than we do. But, yeah, I don't know.
So as an artist, you get more litigious over time. It makes sense.
But my original fantasy for being an artist was not having lawyers and all this crazy stuff. I honestly thought that I would be Henry Darger. That I thought that I would make art, that nobody would give a shit, and I would live in a hovel and just sort of be a weird outsider and make my stuff, and maybe they'd find it after I was dead and throw it in the dumpster. But so
it seems like you're too out there for that, like open.
But it's kind of nice because I came from a small town where nothing was going to happen. I had very small ambitions, so I kind of revel in every success more than I would if I had expected more.
Of course. Yeah. When did you even hear of Darger? Like, at what age did you hear of Darger?
I mean, probably 10 years ago I saw a movie about it.
I was just curious if he was, because it feels like, I don't know when that exact unveiling
I don't know.
But it feels like 10 years ago makes sense to me.
I do feel like I went to the Outsider. My friend dragged me to the Outsider Art Fest.
Uh-oh.
And I developed like an obsession with outsider art, and I just fucking love that shit. And
that makes sense, yeah.
I don't know why. They're not that good. I'm way better than them. But
they're not seen. The eyes aren't as on them. It feels more genuine. I
really love that stuff. And you know, that's why I did get to work with Daniel Johnson, and he's a huge outsider. And there's a kind of weird freedom when you work with him. I remember he did a album cover with Casper the Ghost, and I'm like, dude, you'll get sued. You can't do that. And he goes, dude, we're underground. We can do whatever we want. It's like, and he was right, you know, like at that point we could do whatever we want. The freedom of not being that known or not being known by the mainstream let us be totally free, you know, broke but free, you know.
Well, yeah, that transition is fascinating to me because in your lifetime, obviously the context in which you're working has changed a lot.
But imagine that, like some guy working at Disney now, or any people in positions of power have been aware of me their whole career.
Yeah.
Like when Daniel Johnston had been around for a long time, suddenly he's doing an ad for Target. They're putting speeding motorcycle in a Target ad. But, you know, that guy fell in love with Daniel Johnson in college as a weird underground. Somebody gave him a little underground tape, and he thought, man, if I ever, you know, hit the big time and really get one day, I'm going to sneak Daniel into the culture.
That's right. Yeah.
Same thing with Matt Groening. He goes, you know, I always loved your art, and I was going to sneak you onto an episode. I was just waiting for a way to sneak you on, you know, because they should know about you, you know.
Right, so you got to play the long game.
Yeah,
if you can.
Well, I'm just saying that's a benefit of you'll find when you're older is that you've connected with a lot of people and a lot more than you realize. Of course. Also, when you're my age, a lot of people that were very supportive and very into you are dead.
Oh yeah, they died.
So it kind of works both ways.
In respect to the documentary, like, is it awkward and strange to view a thing about yourself across that much time? I don't. It's hard to imagine.
I didn't really. My mother-in-law came over and they put it on the TV, and I drew pictures, and I'm embarrassed. I don't even like myself on camera. I feel like I'm like a little off mentally, and I don't finish sentences, and I do look at people and if they seem bored, I notice that I'll just stop talking and or I'll go off on some weird tangent or. So yeah, that guy, I don't know. That I have to separate myself from
He's a different guy.
And it's kind of fun because my wife, like I put on the hat or whatever, and she goes, "You're going to go be Ron English," but then when I come home, I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm somebody else. You have to be somebody else. And so at some point, you disappoint people if you don't fling in through the window, or that you have certain expectations, and you have to decide if I've created these weird expectations. Do I follow up on them and give people what they want, or do I, he's just normal, So I don't think they really want you to be that normal. But like we had a big show at Ace Gallery, right? Mm-hmm. And we got Evel Knievel to come, and we built a big ramp in the middle, and he was going to jump the ramp, but he wasn't going to jump the ramp. He was like too fucking old.
I was going to say, when did you do
he
this?
Just came, but at least like you want him to wear his suit, right?
Of course.
So. Because if he came in with a jeans jacket, it's like he's not even Evel Knievel anymore.
Yeah.
And hopefully, and he may not have been able to pull this off in his life, but if he would have been able to put on a jeans jacket, go home and be a different person, he would have had a healthier life,
Well, yeah, that is a compartment. Like I was saying, it seems like a lot of your work or your life is decompartmentalized, but it's interesting to hear that. So there's a persona.
Yeah,
of Ron
a
English.
little bit. Yeah, I mean it's me,
it doesn't seem that distant.
It's like a younger version or whatever, or something that I would, but you don't want to be that anymore. Or I find that it's really healthy to just have a weird normal life where, like when we moved to Beacon, like this small town.
Yeah.
People didn't know who I was, and so we'd have a soccer game, and I'd be talking to Edgar Davids or on the phone, who's a famous soccer player, while I'm watching the game, but I'm not going to turn around to the guy next to me and goes, "Fuck, I'm talking to one of the biggest soccer players in the world. He's one of my collectors." Or you just say, you talk about they work at the fucking prison. You talk about the prisoners and how they get too many movies and they get or whatever, how they're lazy or I don't know. But you just talk about normal shit, and it's kind of weird, but I think it's good,
I think probably true. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's that much distance between the two. I imagine.
No.
You don't seem like
no. There's not that much distance, but
because like right now, I don't feel like I'm talking to a persona,
right?
But I don't know you.
Yeah, no,
so
it's a very mild persona.
Yeah.
I think I used to wear like flag jackets and stuff, but I quit doing that. But but other people do a really good job. Like I don't know. Let's think of somebody. Brainwash always wears his hat, and they expect a little from you, a little bit of showbiz from you. But I don't know. It's a weird life.
Constant, in respect to the documentary, what were you trying to achieve? Just simply documenting his life? Or is it more complex than that?
So I think Ron does so many different things, so prolific in his art that also sort of works against him a little bit. Because you might see art and think this is an artist, and then you see other art and you think this is a different artist, but it's actually also Ron English. So there's like so many different aspects of his art that done by the same person that he's one of those artists that doesn't do the same thing over and over again. And that works also against you because people might not know, the landscape art that you did and, So, and I think he's like one of the best artists alive today, and I feel like the world should know him, So that's why I made the documentary.
So you just wanted to present him?
Yeah, and Ron, and Tarsa, his wife, kept asking me over the years too, like, what's this movie about? And I kept saying, well, it's about Ron. And it's a simple answer, but I tried to just find, the storyline of the things that he has done in his life that ended up and resulted in Delusionville, in his paintings of Delusionville and the characters of Delusionville. And
that was 6 years.
That was 6 years, yeah.
Did anything take you by surprise? Well, obviously you thought it was going to take 6 months.
Yeah, and the length took much.
What about the border?
Oh, the border, yeah. So a few years in, I think this was 2019, we built a wall at the border of Mexico. When Trump was talking about his wall, Ron was saying, like, I want to build a wall. So we
both.
Yeah. So we started talking about it, and I'm like, I'm a builder, so I'm like, I can build that wall for you if you want. Let's go to Mexico, or let's go to the border of Mexico and build a wall. So we went there, and we built like a 400, 500 foot long wall, and invited artists from the area to come and paint it together with Ron. It was a great project. We went to Mexico to try to build one there as well. So we went across the border and talked to a museum about maybe possibly also doing a wall of art there, a welcome wall, not a hate wall, but a welcome wall. That's what we call it. And we had a great conversation. We were gonna build one there. We looked at some locations, and we went back to the United States. And I told the camera guy that was with us, I'm like, okay, no matter what happens, keep filming, because I already saw coming what was gonna happen. But he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you'll see. And we get to the checkpoint, and everybody gets, they show their passport. They got through, and I show my passport. It's a Dutch passport. And like, yeah, you can't come in. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, you can't come in. Anybody that has a different passport than an American passport cannot come into the country. And I'm like, okay. And so Ron was like, oh shit, what's happening? And Andrew, and I'm like, why don't you guys go ahead, and I'll stay behind with the guy that brought us across the border and figure something else out, because I have a business in the United States, I have kids, but yeah, they wouldn't let anybody in that didn't have an American passport, and that was Trump that did that, So he told everybody that working at the border that anybody other than an American passport can come in. So that was a little bit stressful. So I thought, like, oh shit, I don't know what to do now. But we were traveling with a lawyer that figured out. Yeah. Yeah. So she went in. Let me talk to these people, and I'm like, I have a green card. Like, can I go in the green card? And it's like, yeah, you should be able to. But that took a while, and it was stressful. But they let me back in eventually. But that was kind of surprising. Yeah. I mean, but that's one of the things with Ron is like, he's doing so much, and there's like, went to meet Daniel Johnston in Texas, and they did a project together where they painted paintings together. So there's like 10 or 12 paintings, I think, and that sort of dropped out of nowhere as well. It's like, we're sitting in the car talking about Daniel Johnston, and he's like, oh, I used to work with him on these paintings that we were gonna do. And I'm like, well, where are they? He's like, well, they're not finished. I'm like, well, shouldn't you finish them? And he's like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. And then like 2 days later, it's like, all right, we're going to Texas, let's go. I'm like, okay, let's back up and do an interview with Daniel, So it's, so there are lots of surprises.
Well, it sounds like that's part of your life, Ron. A certain level of surprise, chaos,
controlled chaos. Yeah. But yeah, at the border was crazy because what he actually did was just pulled all the border guards. There was only 2 there, so the line was like 6 miles, and there were the vehicles were backed up for 3 days. So people come in with produce, all the produce just rotted, and it was like a nightmare. And we were. It's kind of interesting because we're there, and we're going to see everything that's happening. And we actually found a place where we could cross the border without being hassled. It did seem like it was a lot of show business. But I always think it's interesting to go to where it's happening, and then when you're having all your little arguments with your Trumpy friends, it's like at least you understand what's actually going on. They've been lied to. They're spouting lies. I mean, it doesn't really. You're not going to win an argument or anything, but it's interesting that I was actually there. you know.
Right.
No, I mean, I swear to God, I'm arguing with people who, there's no fires in California. This isn't happening. This is big news. You know, or like they couldn't believe that, you know, there's no fires coming down from Canada. That's not happening. And it's like you're thinking, I can't even see the smoke coming down. Yeah, I can't even see the sun. But in their mind, it's just made up. That's just made up.
Fog machine?
Everything. I don't know. They weren't there. They were, you know, somewhere else in the country. But it was like bizarre stuff. But I find it's really interesting. Like we went to Palestine and, you know, painted the wall there with Banksy and stuff. And it's like, I think it's just interesting to be there and be with the people, and you have a whole different sense.
Yeah, cut through the bullshit, basically. It's a nice photo.
That's the border wall.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
There's these openings in the
border
wall.
If you would have went 10 miles, we could have took him. He could have walked 10 miles and then walked right through without any hassle.
Strange.
Again, it was show business. All the helicopters and the gunboats and the press were there. And if they're not 10 miles, you just go down 10 miles. You know.
Well, on that topic, your documentary opens with a George Carlin quote about the American dream, right? But in a sense, like, do you not feel you live that dream? Like, you genuinely seem to actually live the American dream.
I am the American dream.
But the quote, what is the quote? I don't recall exactly. It's
what do you got to be asleep to believe it or something?
Yeah. But again, maybe that's the Gemini play, because like immediately I saw that, right? And then I was like thinking about what you do and how you make money. And I was like, well, in a sense, I don't know where else I mean, I'm not sure this is true, but it seems like it would be hard to do what you did and make money in any other country.
Yeah, there is a thing called the American Dream.
Yeah.
And it's an idea. It's an idea that I embraced and it was successful with. I would like to see that continue into the next generations. I think that there's something really great about this country. It's a lot of people come here because you know, I mean, why did you come here, Constant? I mean, it's a place. It's a very cool place and a lot of good, you know, and I would hate to, you know, I would hate to lose what we have. And sometimes you don't know what you have. And and I think part of the story he was trying to tell is like, you know, you see this trailer park in the Midwest, that's where he's from.
Right.
You know, and the art world is filled with people of privilege. You know, half the people I know were you know, they have a trust fund that gives them $20,000 a week.
That's cool.
But it makes it easy to be an artist, right?
Of course.
And it also means it makes it easy to go to Art Basel or go to Switzerland Art Basel, or you can just roll around. You're not stressed about money, and so you can just, you know, put together a team, make some art. But also, somebody can come from nothing and find a place in this world too. You know?
Yeah. But no, I mean, I think talking to you, it explains I think the Gemini thing is. I'm not talking zodiacs, just in general. It makes sense to me. This kind of 360 view of a certain perspective or view. I consider that apolitical. You're not trying to just say one perspective about a thing. It's more complex.
I always take a side, and I always have an opinion, but I never believe that the other side is like, they may be wrong about facts, but I don't think their spirit is wrong. I think they're trying to be good people.
Yeah.
And one guy I was super arguing with, because he's super fucking Trumpy, but he's like, dude, we travel the world together. It's like, once you get past all the crazy guards and the security and the detaining by the authorities and you get into the population, what are they like? And it's like, they're fucking beautiful. And it's like, that's right.
Yeah. Is beauty important to you in respect to the work? Beauty in the traditional sense?
That's another thing that I think artists have, is the ability to see. And we're so used to that it's hard. You don't understand other people aren't seeing it. So here's how the first painting ever got made, right? Or the ones that are still around. It's in a cave. They're sitting around a fire. A man or a woman says, look, it's a buffalo. And they're like, oh, there's no buffalo there. Crazy, crazy stuff. No, look, there's a buffalo. And they're seeing the shadows and dance across the wall from the fire. And finally, they take a piece of charcoal and go up and outline it. Because if you look at the caves, they actually follow the contours of the cave. Mm-hmm. So they were seeing that like in shadows, and they outlined it. No, I'm not seeing a real buffalo. I'm seeing like the image of a buffalo, and they didn't. A dog can't do that, and a human couldn't do that until that moment in time that an artist stood up and taught them to see. And we always see more than they're seeing. And you got to remind yourself sometimes, like when you deal with clients, they can't see it. Like sometimes I just render the whole thing. Here. Oh. Because
they could be a lot of things.
They can't imagine it. You know, I'm not disparaging them because they can figure out business stuff or other stuff and their mind's being used for other things. But you got to remind yourself, they're not seeing this. They're not seeing this.
Yeah, I understand.
Your job is to help them see.
Yeah, but I think there's a distinction, right, between helping them see maybe truth or beauty, or there's many things you can help them see, right? But when I was watching the documentary, I was thinking, I wonder what Ron thinks about beauty. Is it a thing he seeks to undermine? Is it a thing he seeks to infuse in the work? Does he care about it? Is it more about the grotesque? Is it meant to be shocking? Or is it both of these things?
Well, I don't see anything as grotesque.
Nothing.
Well, yeah, probably something is. But in my art, in the world I build, I think everything is magical and controlled. I don't see. To me, I want it to be, like going back to Jackson Pollock. I want it to be a little bit halfway between, like, he's creating something, and I understand what he's creating, so I like where he is, and I want that to be part of it, and I also want, like, the photorealism control thing, and I want to have all aspects. So that's why I create all the sets, and they're very abstract, and they're made very organically, but then you kind of contain it all and light it, and then it brings it into another realm, and so I don't know. I mean, I walk around looking at everything. Wow, that's cool. Look, oh, yeah.
Right.
No, but I don't know. I mean, we went into, like, the kid a little bit, and then I know that my wife didn't really want to deal with some aspects of our life that are personal, like once our fucking whole lot burned down and we lost everything. And, I mean, shit happens, but it's like, if you start telling everybody all the shit that happened to you, then they want to talk about that, I don't know. Like, if you have cancer, you kind of don't tell people, not because you're trying to be cagey, because I just don't want to talk about it.
Sure.
I want to be with you to talk about art, not about cancer.
Right.
I'll talk to my doctor about the cancer or whatever,
Right. So you're saying there's certain things that should be shown in a certain way.
Yeah. So some parts of your life, like Neil Young has a messed up kid, So I mean, so people deal with shit, but nobody thinks about that, and he doesn't ever put that out there or make it and put it in his art. So he keeps that separate, so that that doesn't have to be a part of his life. He can engage politically or socially, and not have that be the main subject of who he is.
Right. Yeah, there's some boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, I think people need to watch the documentary.
Yeah, it's a really good documentary.
They can watch it. It's streaming now, right?
Streaming, Apple TV Prime, Roku channel, pretty much.
Say that again. I didn't hear.
Apple TV.
Apple TV.
Yeah. Apple TV.
Oh, I was telling people Prime or something.
Prime too, yeah. Prime. Amazon Prime. Roku. There's a few others.
Do you want people to review it, or?
Yeah, that's. I really want people to just say what they think about the film. Yeah, I mean, on either Prime or IMDb, or like do a little review. That I would love to see what people think. Yeah.
You just want activity, honest activity.
Yeah.
I'll say one more thing. Like, all the time I did illegal billboards. You ever see that movie Fight Club? And you realize that a lot of people know who they are. They just sort of like, I'm working at a job, and they kind of help them because they like what they're doing, but they can't put themselves on the line.
Yeah.
So especially the illegal part of my career was like that. And a lot of people, like in the other movie, The Art Crimes of Ron English, you see us going to Kinko's. It's hard to notice, but the guy gives us everything for free. And he just kind of like gives me a nod. He goes, I know who you are.
That's cool.
And he helped us. And that's what we're kind of asking with this movie. If you watch it, this isn't like a big movie. This is from his heart, and it's brilliant. And if you could just say something nice, it would help his career. I think I'm okay, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's people don't understand how helpful that is. Just to give a little review.
It's true. Review my podcast too while you're at it.
Yeah.
We need them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's hard to sustain these kind of things because these are works of the heart.
It's kind of embarrassing to ask, but it's necessary, I find, at least for my personality.
Yeah, we used to go to Europe. My sister was touring Europe juggling. They weren't making any money. They weren't very good jugglers.
They weren't making money juggling?
She wasn't that good. She wasn't that good. A lot of her friends were really good. They were making a lot of money.
Wow,
then she figured out what these people draw on the streets, right?
Sure.
Like Renaissance shit or whatever. And then she got, fuck, my brother could be really good at that. So she called me up, made me come to Europe. Or she didn't make me, but I came to Europe, and I'm traveling with them. And I said, we put out these boxes, a Donka or whatever, like depending on what country in it. And we were making good money once I was there doing the, like the superstar Renaissance shit. But then I said, it was her and her fiance or husband back then, and I said, we're beggars. We're beggars. And they were like adamant, no, we're contributing to society, we're artists. It's like, nah, we're beggars. Anyway, so we're begging.
Fair enough.
Music by Dory Bavarsky and Ming-Jit Chen. Have a wonderful week.